So the astrology of this week, 14 June 2021 through 20 June 2021, has us in this lovely kind of land after the eclipse where we're recovering, and where this waxing moon can maybe bring us some growth here, get us into this new astrological reality that we're in post-eclipse season. And what's so cool about it is that the moon is largely safe from Mars and Saturn. It has a lot of contact most of the week with Venus and Jupiter, giving this, I think, a really lovely feel for settling into this late spring and summer upcoming. Let's jump into the astrology. You know, the one thing I want to say right off the bat is that this week is so interesting because the moon, there's no aspects. The planets do not make a perfection with each other in any way, shape, or form. No planet changes signs. So just a quick insertion, y'all. Jupiter does station retrograde on Sunday. For some reason in my preparation, I missed that. I just miscalculated. So I just wanted to insert that in here to be abundantly clear that we do have a Jupiter retrograde station on Sunday. I do talk about that some in this video, but had I known, had my kind of prep work gone as planned, maybe this is some of my Mercury retrograde shenanigans, but I would have maybe got that chart up and really unpacked that retrograde station. I'm not going to unfortunately be doing that in this video, but check my Twitter at SJAnderson144. I'll try to post some charts there, kind of looking at maybe some of the fixed stars close to Jupiter's retrograde station, but it's just a point of clarity. Jupiter is stationing retrograde on Sunday. And so the only thing that we have this week is the moon. And it's a great lesson in astrology that there's always something happening with the transits, and there's always something happening any given moment. It doesn't require the bigger events that I'll often talk about in my weekly astrology videos or other astrologers are always hyping up or talking about. We can simply follow the moon. And the moon moves so fast every 28 days, and it's activating the planets and the configurations as they're laid out in the transiting chart. And so this week is a great lesson in that, how we can dig in with only the moon and still pull so much out and let the moon speak to us and tell us about the nature of the energy, the state of those configurations. And so, you know, the big deal is that the eclipse season is over. We had that second eclipse, that solar eclipse in Gemini, and I'm just now making this video a little bit reflective, thinking back about it. It's been so busy. I mean, this solar eclipse and this eclipse season, I think, was a great example. They're always like this, but this one you might want to think about and reflect in your own experiences, just how, you know, up in the air things are. That's what I was thinking earlier about the analogy with eclipse season. I think one of the best analogies is it's just like things are up in the air, and we're having to kind of manage almost like a slow motion where we catch everything, you know. And then now post-eclipse season, it's like, whew, it lands, and now we're back in maybe a little bit more comfortable ground, and now it's just the work of life, you know, the day in, day out rigor of life. It's not this intense, faded kind of everything being held in this moment of, I was going to say shock, but this moment of just awe, of divine, kind of the divine play of our reality, where we sort of get taken and advanced, you know, into this next phase of our fate. And that's what life is, right? It's one brick, one stepping stone, and then to the next. Our past and the choices we made in the past are propelling us and guiding us into the future. And so now we'll have 6 months to settle into this reality, this late spring, this summer, and we get into fall, and then we've got the next eclipse season. So the great thing about that eclipse season is that we'll have that first eclipse in Taurus, a lunar eclipse there in Taurus. It's great just in the sense that a new part of our chart will be activated by these eclipses. The Taurus-Scorpio axis is what's in play for all of 2022. And so it's exciting. I always get excited when I see activations of any kind, when there's shifts, because it means parts of our lives that need revamping will now get revamped. So this is just what the world we're in, this post-eclipse season settlement into kind of the rhythms, the routines, and the configurations of this spring and summer that we'll have to be confronted with. And you know, I think we're coming out of the eclipse season, but it's still lingering here as we get into this full moon in Capricorn. Next week, we'll, I think, feel that real completion, because we'll have a reset of the syzygic energy. That's like the first time I've heard that adjective, but the energies of the syzygy will reset with a non-eclipse syzygy to then propel us for a 2-week cycle. Maybe that's when all of eclipse season we can say now it's officially ended. But still, we're coming out of it and we're letting it settle this week and with this waxing lunar cycle. I want to just speak briefly about some of the main post-eclipse season configurations. We've got Mars and Leo opposite Saturn and Aquarius. This just started. We'll be here for 6 weeks until the end of July, when Mars will traverse that border into Virgo. And I'm going to talk about that in this video. And then the other big aspect that's going to guide the next little period is that Jupiter will station in Pisces next week, station retrograde. And so that Jupiter's basically, it's still right now in that 3rd degree of Pisces, Pisces 3, and it's just stopped, and then it's going to turn around and exit Pisces at the beginning of July. So that's kind of the backdrop of Jupiter and Saturn, those longer term planets, and then we're settling into that energy. And you know, the good thing about Pisces and Jupiter is that it's been this little peak, this little preview. And I would just throw this to you. Think about the part of your chart that Jupiter is in, that Pisces comprises. If you're using whole sign houses, I use whole sign houses. And just, I think if you think back, you might find little sweet spots, little kind of moments of hope or gifts or improvements or upgrades. Even though Jupiter and Pisces happened, this little preview happened against the backdrop of such intense astrology. I was talking about that in a reading this week, and on Twitter there's been a lot of conversation about just how this Jupiter and Pisces moment maybe has been overshadowed by eclipse season and Mercury retrograde. And so we're not really, but I still think this is what my invitation to you is, just kind of peek and think about the kind of openings that you may have experienced. Now for me, there's definitely been some like, okay, this is the Jupiter and Pisces energy. I know what this is, I can feel it, and there's been changes. It hasn't been dramatic, but it's certainly been present for me. So I just encourage you to contemplate that. That's the great thing about transits. They're invitations to explore symbols. So, you know, it's my offering to you, and it might be more accessible now that eclipse season is over and now that Jupiter is coming to that powerful standstill. Remember, a retrograde station is a power point, and it's like a peak of a pivot that then, you know, our story can sort of peak and pivot, and then as the planet moves out of those stations, we sort of settle into the rest of the story. Much like eclipse season in a way, a planetary station, whether retrograde or direct, is kind of like those climaxes that then there's peaks and valleys, and the stations are peaks. So we're getting that with Jupiter. We're in that now, and so that's one thing I think it's important to contemplate. I also want to just mention this about the Mars and Leo, Saturn and Aquarius transit, and this is maybe something I'm going to move to the next slide now. Actually, before I do that, I'll come to this in a second. Let's just look at the timing here. So the moon, we start the week with the moon in Leo. The moon will then move into Virgo on the 16th. That will be Wednesday here in Central Europe early in the morning. So all of our Wednesdays will be this lovely Virgo moon. I'm going to break down all these charts in this video, so you'll get to see how I'm looking at these transits specifically. But then on, let's see, that's Friday, we'll have the Libra moon. Friday in the morning again, the moon ingresses into Libra, another lovely transit. And then we finish the week on Sunday midday here in Central Europe with the moon coming into Scorpio. So we start the week with the moon in the fixed modality, dealing with Saturn and Mars directly. And that Leo moon, the moon is co-present with Mars opposite Saturn. And then we end the week with the moon falling into Scorpio and then making a T-square to the Saturn-Mars opposition. So there's real intensities to begin and end the week, but the middle of the week is just very, very lovely. We're going to break it all down here. There's a point I want to make though, and this has also come up in readings this week. You know, the malefic planets, malefic might not be the best term. It's the term we have from the older text. It's the term that we use in English to translate. I don't even know the Greek, but I think about it as just challenge. That might be a better word. These are the planets of challenge, Saturn and Mars. And challenge is not something to, in my view, run from. challenge is inevitable. Everybody's got challenge. You've had challenges in your life, I know. I've had challenges. It's the Buddhist first noble truth of the suffering of existence. Coming out of that womb and we start crying, what the hell is this? We start crying. It's challenge immediately, right? The struggle for food, the struggle for comfort. But through challenge is how character is built. It's how empathy is fostered. When we've gone through something, we begin to know struggle and know pain. And that's how we then connect to the others. We can see and feel and understand other people through the intensities of the challenges we've been faced in life. And so I love people, by the way, with hard Saturn, Mars aspects in their nativity. These are folks that usually have gone through, maybe had to have matured young, maybe there's traumas and great difficulty, but see, it's propelled them and to dig deep, to heal, and to function with those intensities as a part of their makeup. And when you can do that, you become this great asset, this great sort of generator of value, this oasis of love and compassion for those in your life. And so when I say here, I'd say all this because when we start talking about the moon activating, right now the moon is in Leo, or not yet while I'm recording this video, that comes later today. But the moon Sunday will enter Leo, and then we'll spend those first 2 days this week activating the Saturn-Mars opposition. I say this, it's not that, I'm not saying it like we should just shut down life and avoid those transits. No, this is what's probably going to trigger and propel the challenges that are here given to us so that we can learn lessons in life, overcome those challenges, change ourselves, change our character, gain new skills, go through new life experiences such that we're more rounded people, that we have a deeper capacity for empathy, and we can kind of be there for others. So that happens to begin the week and end this week. But as astrologers, we do get really excited, and I do when life isn't about these deeper struggles and challenges that build character. That's all cool and that's all well and fine, and it should be celebrated. But I also think we need to celebrate the times in life when that's not in the forefront, that's not front and center, and we just get a lot of Venus and Jupiter and the moon and waxing and growth and positivity and chill, calm, love, enjoyment, faith, hope. I mean, those parts of life are very much to be enjoyed. And and that's why we focus on these as astrologers. We try to map these energies, and I get excited about positive so-called transits just because it's a respite from the inevitable suffering that we're all going through. And so I just want to clarify that. Enjoy all of these transits, but it's not to avoid. We're not going to avoid Mars and Saturn. Everybody's got it in their natal chart. It's unavoidable energies. So let me keep going here. And the point I was going to make, and now I'm going to go to the next slide, is that Mars and Saturn on the same axis, in the same mode. I can edit this while I'm doing the video. You can see here Mars and Saturn on the same axis. That's currently the fixed axis. They're in the same mode, which is the fixed signs. What that does, and you can see it here on the next slide, is that it opens up the other two modes. Those two modes are now what we call safe from Mars and Saturn, in that Mars doesn't make a square or an opposition, and Saturn doesn't make a square or opposition to the moon or any other planet in the fixed cardinal signs and mutable signs. So look here, the other way to think about it is that the challenging placements are all conglomerating in fixed signs, and the challenging aspects they make are reserved for fixed signs. So effectively 2/3 of the zodiac is freely open. And I love it when this happens because it pinpoints the challenge into just one sector of the chart, but simultaneously then frees two other sectors. If we just look at the modality, the three the three modal axes as sectors. So it's in one way, it's an opportunity when you see this. And that's the thing about challenge too. It's like sometimes challenge does clarify. There's the clarifying feature of challenge, because we then have to confront something that gets front and center, and we sort of then learn what is valuable to us, because we might have to make choices to confront something. We let other things go. So there's kind of freedom that comes when challenge gets in focus or conglomerates. So let's just keep going here. I'm going to push through. This is the chart of what I've done with these lunar transits. I've picked out charts that I think maybe embody the best energy or the main themes that I want to discuss. This is a chart here on Monday at 8 in the morning in Tirana, where I am. And you can see here right upon the moon's entry into Leo, it will first hit the sun. This at this time of the moon's already 6 degrees into Leo, but it's applying to that opposition with Saturn, and it's separating from Mars. This is actually a condition called being smashed between the malefics. That's my term. You don't find that in the ancient text. That's kind of a modern lingo or a modern vernacular, but it's enclosed, separating from one malefic planet, applying to the other. So I think Monday here might be a time to just hunker in, hunker down. If you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling trapped, remember fixed signs are signs of things that are locked in. These might be conditions, especially Saturn and Aquarius. It's bringing up like fixed conditions of the realm, things that we're struggling against that are kind of settled, the rules of the game that we can't really change. That might be what fixed signs are. So the frustration that can be produced by like a Mars and fixed sign here, a Mars and Leo, a double fire, Leo the fire sign, Mars the fire planet. I think this is a potential of frustration about fixed conditions, a sense I can't change this. I don't know what to do to change this. You might be feeling that here, particularly when the moon is confronted with this malefic enclosure. This is Monday, it finishes Monday. And so just know that you'll get free from this, but it can be good to expose like where we feel trapped. I think that's the only way to sometimes to so-called hit bottom with things, is feel completely trapped and powerless. And then we're now free to become willing to do things we may not have been willing to do before, or then sometimes there can even be openings of vision, and there's kind of a crying out that can happen only when we feel completely trapped and fixed. Saturn is prisons. That's the oldest text we have. Saturn signifies prisons. Mars signifies rage and anger. So as they oppose each other, this is one way I'm looking at this transit. It's kind of, I like to delineate positively. You guys know that out there. I like to stay with these positive delineations, but as an astrologer, you do get criticized sometimes for the sugarcoating model, and I don't try to sugarcoat. I hope I don't come off that way, but this is a transit that's really kind of hard to sugarcoat. We have to talk about maybe the so-called tougher or rougher sides of these two planets making this opposition. And but again, there's always light and there's always hope. We become powerless to release into the spiritual truth of that and ask for aid. That's what this great kind of powerless feeling and feeling trapped and fixed can bring. So let me move here. The other thing I was saying is that I want to say is that the Leo is a sign of an identity of the self, the fixed structures, what we believe to be true about who we are, what we're here for, our purpose in this realm, our purpose of this incarnation, how we interface with the society, right? Leo is the self, Aquarius is the structures of society. They're going to be opposed here. And I think the risk is that maybe we fight for our what we've projected ourselves to be. We might want to defend that. That might feel threatened. And Mars may have us in here fighting for our beliefs or our principles. And so just know that and be aware of that here with Mars. And if you have to do that, it's great to fight for something you feel closely and feel strongly about. It's a closely held principle. But going too far may not be comfortable, and especially with Saturn being stronger here by dignity. Saturn is in Aquarius. I think that these old conservative fixed structures of society are superior here, and so be aware that the fight you're bringing, it may be sort of in vain in a way, but still worth fighting, right? Sometimes we just fight no matter what because it's the right thing to do, and those principles are worth fighting for. And I use the term fight or battle, these metaphors, in the ancient text, the oldest text we have, Mars does signify battle and conflict and acrimony and passion and action. I don't think this has to carry a negative connotation. I was tweeting about this yesterday, and some people were like, hey, let's let go of the fighting as a metaphor, fighting as a idea, but I don't think that's the right way to go. I think we need to actually say, all right, fighting is a part of life. It's inevitable. We're always going to be in conflict. It's the nature of being. I was tweeting about this. I said, live with some roommates for a year and tell me that fighting isn't inevitable, and that conflict isn't inevitable. It's part of life. We're people, we have instincts, we have wills, we have, desires, and that will come and butt up with others. And so it's not to abandon the idea of fighting, we're not going to do that. It's no, how do we use and embrace that inevitable conflict, but do it well, do it fairly, do it healthily, and do it so that there can be real conclusions and real movement forward of whatever our collective is. So like in a roommate situation, you sit down, you say, listen, let's have this out. What do you think? What do I think? No, I think you're wrong. No, you're right. You do it in a healthy way. You learn how to have combat, so then you can reach a new agreement, right? That's what Saturn is. Remember, Saturn is the triplicity ruler of Libra, the sign of agreements, new agreements, initiating agreements. You want to use Saturn in that way. That's a positive way to use Saturn in Aquarius. What are the fixed new agreements maybe that you can reach through the combat, through the fighting for your principles? It's just how you do it. It's not to avoid it, it's to do it well. Okay, so let me move here. This is that transit. This is what the moon's going to activate. Look at it on this chart. I mean, it's quite powerful that these two planets are alone here. The benefic planets, look at it too during this transit. They don't make any aspect to Aquarius and to Leo. We have in the sky right now, the benefics are operating in a whole different kind of world than these two malefics on the fixed axis. That's what I was saying earlier. So the moon now is entering the malefic realm. And then what happens is it comes into Virgo here on Wednesday morning, and look at this, right when the moon enters Virgo, it'll start applying directly to an opposition from Jupiter, which is positive. You have oppositions from benefic planets, just think about it and it's perfecting. Look at that red line on the chart. It's like Jupiter sending energy to the moon, directly to the moon. You want Jupiter's energy, especially from Jupiter and Pisces. So the other thing about the Virgo moon, it's very, very nice because the moon is in a sign of its sect. So the so-called feminine signs, and that's antiquated gendered language, but that's how astrologers have thought about those signs up until we're now realizing, hey, we can talk about that gendered language. We can sort of let it go. We don't need to think about them in that way. We can if it's useful, and I encourage people, if they think that's a useful model, some astrologers are defending that and saying that no, we can use that in a useful way. I personally like to problematize it. That's why I say so-called, or put it in quotes, so it's understood that it's a feature of a descriptive, that it's a descriptor that might need to be critiqued and held in critique. But I like to call it here the night sect. And those are the times when we're not out in the day, we're at night, we're at home, we're thinking about how to rest and heal and feel good. And then we prepare to go out into the day, and that would be the so-called masculine, the day sect. But so the moon in Virgo is of the night sect. It's of a sign of its night sect. It has a rulership during the nighttime whenever it, over these signs, particularly the earth signs. And so this Virgo moon will be lovely at night. The other thing here is that the moon will sextile Venus. Look at it, the whole time it's in Virgo, sign-based opposition to Jupiter and a sextile to Venus. And it's an overcoming sextile, Venus in earlier zodiacal order. So the moon, we say, sees the benefic planets. They make a testimony to the moon. Whereas the malefic planets during this transit, Mars isn't playing any kind of role, and neither is Saturn. And so this Virgo moon is very special, waxing in a sign that it's comfortable of its own nature. Testimony from both benefic planets. And the one thing about it is Mercury's still retrograde, and that's less than ideal. So I don't know if I just would appreciate and enjoy this energy. It's maybe our Mercury retrograde story here gets a lot of support. If you've had problems for the first part of Mercury retrograde, now they might start healing. Maybe it's time to begin thinking about, actually, I would use this, Virgo is a planet sign of planning. You could use this to maybe not initiate, maybe not to use this as an election, but to just start thinking about, okay, Mercury's going to station and then move through Gemini after stationing direct. What do you want Mercury, and then move into Cancer, where there's some great mutual receptions. The next Virgo moon has a lovely, lovely mutual reception. Moon ruled by Mercury, Mercury and Cancer ruled by the moon. I've been looking at that for a long, long time. So I think we're preparing, is what I'm trying to say here. This could be a planning transit, but just feel the energy, feel those benefic planets, the night sect having all that benefic energy. This might be a time just to feel, okay, a passivity and an enjoyment, and maybe a planning using that Mercury retrograde, even look backs. Think about your year. This is a good time to, I think, consider just how far you've come this year. We've all come far. I mean, the world is nuts, and it's getting more insane, but yet there's openings. Look, I'm looking at beautiful sunshine. We're coming into spring and summer. There's a lot of choices for you. You can go places now more so than when it was cool or cold in the northern hemisphere. Down under, you know, I'm wondering how you might prepare for the winter, depending on what your latitude is. Maybe you have to do preparations for the winter. This could be how you might want to use this transit. So, attentive to needs, deeper needs, body, mind, and comfort. The one point I wanted to make here is that maybe the spiritual octave of Virgo, I think about just how the spiritual truth, right, is that we're all children of God. We have this divine spark of divinity in us that we can quicken and bring kind of a divine agapic love to ourselves and to everybody around us. But the detail is where the devil is. I don't mean to use the term devil there. I'm talking about like these very spiritual truths. Throwing devil can kind of be like a fly in the ointment there, but it's just an expression. We have the devils in the details, meaning that sometimes we have to actualize through tangible physical expression. We can have the awareness of the greater truth, but without that detailed actualization, sometimes it can't have a container. And Virgo is the sign of the container of this divine reality. It's when we can really think about our container. Remember, the moon is the container of the spirit. You see that metaphor, believe it's Firmicus, that the moon is actually a container, and that's why it signifies the body. So the container of our spirit now is going to get that mercurial treatment while Mercury's retrograde. It might be a time to clean house, to do some late spring cleaning. But, you know, chop wood, carry water. This is that kind of transit. What do we have to do? Where's those particular things that we might need to do? Okay, so what will happen here is that you'll really enjoy this Virgo transit, I hope. Here's another time here. This is on the 17th. This is on Thursday. You can see later in Virgo, the moon will perfect that sextile to Venus. I think it's within the hour. It's just after it perfects that square to Mercury. So the moon can communicate with Mercury and then apply directly to Venus here in Cancer. And it's nice because during the daytime, Venus is a triplicity ruler of Virgo. And so during the daytime, Venus can there plays a big role in Virgo, and particularly those degrees around 10 degrees because there's Venus's term. So the moon will have this sweet mutual reception with its triplicity ruler. And of course the benefic Venus is in Cancer, so we already have that home pleasure, that Venusian, you know, optimism, and that Venusian, you know, feeling good in that combining with that lunar energy. Now they're communicating here on Thursday, and Venus is a sect mate of the night sect there. That's why it has a triplicity rulership. So we're just it's just a lot of goodness with this Virgo moon, a lot of love, and I think it's very nice to have this coming after the moon being so focused on that challenge. Now we get a break and some rest and some love and some healing here midweek. So the next transit I just want to bring in here is this Libra Moon. And this is the nature of our zodiac. We go day sect, night sect, day sect, night sect. There's 6 planets, 6 signs of each sect, and they're alternating in how they're splayed in the zodiac. Their order of how they're assigned signs of the zodiac. And so it's a lovely way that we get this kind of rhythm and balance, like a sine wave or a beat, off, on, A, B, this kind of maybe a fundamental to the code of reality, even like the I Ching or something. It's like broken line, straight line. There's this mixing of these kind of dual on, off. We have this here in our zodiac. And, what it does is it means that when there's time of this rest and more focus on the nighttime and the body and the home and the comfort, that prepares us, you see, every 2.5 days. Now we get to go out. And that's what I think this Libra moon transit really offers us. Libra is the day sect sign that Venus rules. And so now we're coming into something, we're continuing the goodness I have here, but it becomes more about the outward active nature of beauty and the nature of relationship in terms of a decision making and an outward expression of that, cardinal signs, right, signify initiation. So we have a Venus cardinal sign here, Venus ruled cardinal sign, and I think what we'll do is think about how we actualize beauty. You know, there's the passive taking in of something beautiful. If you just look at a photograph or a painting, or even just sitting with someone as you sit in a meal. You know, think about marriage and married couples or coupled or partnered people. You know, what's that old saying? You can tell who's married or who's been together for a long time if you go to a restaurant because they're not talking. They're usually just sitting. It's quiet. It's appreciating that comfort. You can tell when people are on a first date or when they're initiating a connection because it's this active, oh, what do you do? They're asking each other questions, they're exploring things, or if they're in that early romantic phase, there's a lot of touching maybe. Maybe they're sitting on the same side of the table and feeding each other. That's a fun phase of relationships, isn't it? But that's the sort of the active side. Or maybe you're actually painting. You know, you see these wild-eyed painters like a Pollock or those pictures of Picasso where he just looks like a maniac. You know, waking up every day, making 2 or 3, however many canvases or drawings he made a day, workaholic maniac. But this is the Libran side, the active side, or the making of agreements, like I was saying earlier, because you do have Saturn there. And so I just want to say we're shifting into that. This is a good time this week, and the ruler Venus is not retrograde. Unlike when the moon was in Virgo, we have that Mercury retrograde energy we're incorporating in. As soon as the moon hits Libra, we get this amazing mutual reception. And both the rulers of Cancer and Libra are in these 2 cardinal signs, this really open, freed up cardinal energetic that is only allowed to exist in such a robust and pleasurable way because you have Mars and Saturn on that fixed axis. So it gives us this great power here. This transit, I think, would be my transit of the week. I'm throwing this as the best transit of the week. I actually love this energy. You will have the moon waxing here. I think you can probably elect for certain types of elections, maybe relationship stuff or art, something that's not necessarily business, that's Mercury. You want to elect here maybe connection, something or an agreement of some kind, not business related, not Mercury related, maybe just telling someone that you enjoy them, or maybe a small election. I really prefer Mercury direct when I do most important elections of almost all kind, but I think we can do Venusian style things here. Magical stuff would certainly work here if you're doing lunar or Venusian style magical acts. I know some of my friends have been talking about Spica. That's a fixed star right here in the 23rd, 24th degree of Libra, the Spica Arcturus fixed star zone. That so there's people talking about some magic with that. That's a special thing. Anytime I mention that topic, astrological magic, I just encourage you to go slow, read Chris Warnock's body of work, get his books. He's the master, and he's very good at showing that world. So if you're interested, you can read his books. But so this is just a lovely, lovely energy and a lovely, lovely transit. I like it better than the Virgo moon because of the mutual reception and that involves the moon's ruler they're supporting each other greatly here. And so the other thing I would just say, that trine from Saturn, I've been mentioning it a few times. This might be a time to make art, initiate a relationship or a change in one. You know, with cardinal energy, we're initiating here. So you may want to negotiate with those roommates. I'm talking about roommate drama earlier in this talk. And these I remember I had some roommates, I was living in Portland. This was 2009. And there was these weekly meetings these were serious roommates. You know, it was great. But we would sit down and people would complain about their bill being too high, or why does he have the bigger room? And, you know, things were hashed out and negotiated. And it eventually made things better. You know, there was so I won't go too much into that. That was a crazy time in my life, and some of those roommates were nuts. It's an example of my Mars Saturn energy. I kind of want to pull up my charts for some of those transits, because there was some crazy stuff that happened. Talk about fights, but in terms of this transit, I think we can think about the longevity that reaching a new understanding with someone can then provide stability and longevity from that moment forward. And that's why Saturn also rules Libra, because it's exalted there and it has triplicity rulership in the daytime. You know, we want to have agreements that last and that have longevity. We want to initiate things in order that they stay and that they kind of create new stability. That's why we We make agreements because there's a problem, there's a conflict, there's a challenge. Agreements are a way out of that. They are relief from that challenge and from that conflict. So you might even think about it like this. Monday, you've got that malefic enclosed moon. Here by Saturday, maybe there's some kind of new understanding you're going to reach. And that's how we're dealing with the Mars-Saturn, or the Mars-Saturn opposition, is that we, during these lovely cardinal transits and this Virgo-Libra moment, it's like a way to get into the good side of that. What did the challenge trigger, and then what changes are we now making? You know, the opportunities that challenge brings, now we can capture those opportunities with this Virgo Libra transit. Lovely energy. I love these two moons, and I love this Libra moon. It's really amazing. So, all right, so that's it. That is the weekly astrology. Thank you for being here. I'm glad to share it with you. I'm excited about this week. It's nice to not have eclipse energy so strong and be waxing away from that eclipse energy, and having these two lunar transits it's a real opportunity. So let's pull some tarot cards. Let's see what the cards say and the additional symbolic context that the cards want us to consider for this week's astrology. I'm going to pull the first card here. All right. This is, I believe, the Queen of, the Earth Queen. So that would be the Queen of Diamonds. And let me just make sure of that. But I think we're dealing with Queen of Diamond energy. That does correspond to not Capricorn, to fixed Earth, which, fixed Earth is Taurus. We just came through all that Taurian energy, but I think that the discussion I had earlier dealing with the night sect and how that Virgo moon transit there's an engagement with the moon, Venus in Cancer, and all that discussion I had earlier about the night sect, that is maybe what this is pointing to. Yes, it is the Queen of Diamonds. Lovely green on this deck. I love that green. It's kind of a, what's the name of that green? There's a certain name that I can't think of. But so this green, so this might be pointing us to that Taurus moment we had back before Gemini season. So what is that? It's May 20th roughly is when the sun comes into Gemini. So we're talking about maybe early May, right around Jupiter's ingress into Pisces was the end of Taurus season. So maybe it's really, this could be, you know what this could be? It's asking us to reflect on our pre-eclipse season. What happened during eclipse season that changed your life? Because this time, that Taurus season was the last moment before the sun then came into Gemini and is now co-present with the North Node, and we're now in eclipse season. So it's always good to reflect. What's different? What changes did eclipses bring you? What are the things, the gifts, the fated shifts that the universe provided you? And I know there were some, even if there was pain and struggle and upheaval, there's gifts here. It's a plateau, it's a settling now. You know, plateau may be the wrong word, but maybe it's that now settling in between the land of eclipses, and what is different. That's, I think, what this is asking us. And maybe what's different with your night sect energy. You know, we're able to focus in on that with Venus in Cancer now. Remember, Mars left Cancer, thank God. Man, my energy is so much better and stronger with Mars out of the sign of its fall. But Venus is there alone now. And so maybe it's a chance to just consider how do you want to feel pleasure? What do you want to do in your home and with the safety of your home life to feel pleasure and to feel beautiful? You know, maybe there's beauty routines that you're going to change. I'm growing my beard out. You know, there's little shifts like that may be worth considering. And the other thing I'll just say, this is the fixed energy. So we talked all about Mars and Saturn on the fixed axis now. This is the outlet potentially for the moon when it comes into Taurus later. Maybe there's this kind of Taurian outlet, this Venusian style relaxing that we can do to deliberately manage the day sect opposition that we're having with those two malefics in the day sect fixed signs. How can you rest from the challenge or the conflict or the acrimony? How can you make sure you're feeling okay with whatever's going on in that part of your chart? Okay, so I'm gonna move now, get the second card. Let's see what's next here. Okay, let's see, we've got this, I believe, is I think it's the Tower, but let me see here. That'd be cool. That'd be cool if it's the Tower. Desktop. Let me get to my, yes, it is the Tower. So wow, we're dealing with the Mars energy. That's what the Tower is. It's Mars breaking things up. And you know what, that whole rant I had at the beginning of this talk about how challenge is an opportunity, and to not be afraid of hard aspects with malefic planets, because they're actually shaking the life up so that we change and embrace challenge and kind of become the people we're supposed to be. That's exactly what this card represents. It's Mars destroying a tower. But see, these two individuals, they're falling to the earth. There is a tarot, understanding here that the card before this you see is Capricorn. It's the Saturn-ruled devil. And the two figures in the devil card are actually, it's almost like they're in captivity, imprisoned. Remember what I was talking about at the beginning of this talk, all about these kind of fixed structures that we're locked into. This Mars-Saturn opposition is exposing those, and there's frustration about what we can't change. But see, Mars, and this is maybe this is the future position. Maybe there's something that's going to come with your Mars. Maybe I'm underestimating Mars's ability to shake things up in an opposition with Saturn and Aquarius. And so if you're broken free from things this week, know that you can sort of fall to the ground. It may feel scary and like you're falling, but you will land, and you're now free from whatever constraints may have been there. So it's the opportunity, it's this whole theme of this talk. Challenge, then you can use that challenge and capture the benefits of what has changed, or what challenge is asking you to change. So okay, that is, I think I'm gonna leave it there. I feel that's a cool card to see. It fits thematically with this talk and with this week. So that's the weekly tarot reading. This has been Weekly Astrology and Weekly Tarot with S.J. Anderson. That's me. Thank you for being here. It's a great honor and privilege to share this with you. And you can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com. Click here to schedule a reading right at the top. I've got some new reading spaces opened up. Actually, I toned down my reading schedule during eclipse season. I had some obligations, doing some coursework. Stormy Grace's YouTube Academy, I just published a new course there on housing systems. That course was a little strange to do. It's the first time I've ever taught it, and I would do it completely differently. But there is some cool things I think in that talk that's going to be posted, but it's kind of an advanced talk with some kind of abstract ideas. Maybe not the best introductory talk, but that's there. But yeah, so I'm available for a few more readings now. If you've been waiting on that, just go there. I love that. It's been so sweet. I always love doing that. My tarot readings are available as always. And yeah, have a lovely week ahead. I am glad we have this connection, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.